Now I will tell you the answer to my question. It is this: the party seeks power entirely for its own sake. We are not interested in the good of others. We are interested solely in power, pure power. What pure power means, you will understand presently. We are different from the oligarchies of the past in that we know what we are doing. All the others, even those who resembled ourselves, were cowards and hypocrites. The German Nazis and the Russian communists came very close to us in their methods, but they never had the courage to recognize their own motives. They pretended, perhaps they even believed, that they had seized power unwillingly and for a limited time, and that just around the corner there lay a paradise where human beings would be free and equal. We are not like that. We know that no one ever seizes power with the intention of relinquishing it. Power is not a means, it is an end. One does not establish a dictatorship in order to safeguard a revolution. One makes the revolution in order to establish the dictatorship. The object of persecution is persecution. The object of torture is torture. The object of power is power. Now you begin to understand me. Prophetic lines from George Orwell's magnum opus 1984. Every single word of it fits the Chinese Communist Party brilliantly, and their latest action is also exactly as Orwell predicted. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. Hi and welcome. This is TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group, and I am your host, Sanbir Anhotra. In this video, I will tell you about how the Chinese Communist Party is making an Orwellian nightmare come true, because war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Let's begin. China's EduTech sector has been hammered down. The hammer and the sickle have been brought down heavily on the bustling sector. At the core of China's rather gigantic and unprecedented crackdown on the edtech sector is Xi Jinping's insecurity of losing his grip over the Chinese populace. But the crackdown on private education is rather all-pervasive, apart from being perverse, of course. Xi Jinping has banned private tutoring, and now he has turned his eyes towards the evisceration of private schools in China. Some Chinese provinces are running pilot projects, under the aegis of which the operation and upkeep of private schools is becoming virtually impossible. On September 1st, the law on the promotion of private education went into effect in China. The law, signed by Premier Li Keqiang after being introduced in April by the State Council, China's highest administrative body, prohibits foreign ownership of private compulsory education and introduces a raft of policies restricting the profiteering of private schools. Essentially, it turns private schools into not-for-profit entities. Now, while that may be oxymoronic for the rest of the world, for how can a private institution function without making profits and raising capital? In China, everything is going as per Xi Jinping's plan. According to SupChina, the law restricts how education can be monetized, especially where public assets are involved. Public schools are prohibited from privatizing parts of their business, while private schools, or those registered as non-profits, have tighter oversight on their revenue streams. Additionally, the business and curriculum of private schools must now be in strict line with that of public schools in China. Foreign entities are prevented from holding ownership stakes, adherence to national curriculums will be more strongly enforced, and foreign textbooks are prohibited. Foreign investments have more or less been barred completely. Some Chinese provinces, meanwhile, are taking Xi Jinping's campaign against the private education sector to its logical end. The Education Department in Sichuan, for instance, issued a notice in June to suspend the approval of new private schools. The SupChina report added that throughout summer, several provinces, including Sichuan and Henan, set a goal to reduce the proportion of private school enrollments to 5% by 2022, given the fact that the national average of the same is close to 10.8%. Effectively, China is looking to squeeze private schools and educational institutions so hard that they find it unfeasible to continue operations, forcing them to shut down and leading to their students shifting base to public schools. As of 2020, there were 186,700 private schools in China, accounting for more than one-third of all schools and one-fifth of all students. The youth in China are not big fans of the Chinese Communist Party or the CCP, and many among them have launched a do-nothing movement against the Chinese regime. Others, meanwhile, are promising to remain single and not procreate, a severe setback for the CCP as it desperately attempts to revive China's declining birth rates. Private schools in China have not been under the direct control of the communist state per se. The CCP has not been able to influence decision-making in private schools to an extent it would ideally want to. Furthermore, the curriculum of Chinese private schools is not entirely in sync with the communist propaganda taught at public schools with the goal of indoctrinating the young and susceptible minds of children. Therefore, in the long run, students of private schools can pose a threat to Xi Jinping's reign. Xi Jinping feels that private education and foreign education could create ideological conflicts in several parts of China. It could also fuel Hong Kong-styled activism in different parts of the communist nation. By gradually obliterating the private education sector, Jinping is actually following Mao Zedong's legacy in cementing his rule over China. Banking on the coronavirus-driven lockdowns and social distancing measures, the Chinese EdTech sector experienced extraordinary growth and allured some 84,000 new operators last year alone. The technology-driven education stocks bagged investments totaling 106 billion yuan in the period. Xi Jinping's latest restrictions on the EdTech sector ban companies that teach school curriculums from making profits, raising capital, or going public. This has shut all doors for these companies to make any form of capital and for investors to get their desired exits. China's EdTech sector had the ability to create an entire class of young Chinese people who would have exposure to information which the usual Chinese students, still heavily dependent on traditional modes of teaching, would not have. The traditional curriculum in China propagates subservience to the CCP, while the private EdTech sector did not really fulfill this objective. Therefore, the sickle of the CCP has been used to clip the sector's wings. A new cultural revolution is underway in China. Jinping is aware of the fact that he can control the minds of China's future generations if he controls the education and the environment in which it is imparted. Therefore, he is going all out to destroy China's private education sector, and private schools are the latest casualty of the same.